Welcome back to Northern Tales, where silence is broken and every woman's story finds its way back to her own voice. Last episode, Zubaida's life in Abuja finally collapsed after Hajia Kilishi's brother, Kawu Sada, tried to harm her. Forced into silence and afraid her family would suffer financially, Zubaida confessed to a lie she never told and returned home to Mani, carrying shame, fear, and heartbreak. When Zubaida arrived back in Mani, everybody was surprised. Nobody expected her so suddenly. And a face that looked completely broken. Her mother, Nana, kept asking questions immediately. What happened? Why did they bring you back? Did something happen in school? But each time Nana asked, Zubaida only cried harder. She could not speak. Later that evening, after most of the visitors had left and the compound became quieter, Talatu gently called Zubaida into her room. Unlike Nana, Talatu did not rush her. She simply sat beside her quietly for some time. Then softly, she asked, "What happened to you, my child?" Immediately, tears filled Zubaida's eyes again. Talatu moved closer and pulled her gently toward herself, placing Zubaida's head on her lap, the same way she used to soothe her when she was younger. For a long time, Zubaida only cried. Then slowly, between sobs and shaking breaths, the truth finally began coming out. She told Talatu everything. The cruelty inside Hajia Kilishi's house. The two different lives they lived whenever Alhaji Kabir was present or absent. The conversation she overheard about why she had truly been brought to Abuja. And finally, with visible shame and fear, she told her about Kawu Sada and his behavior, about the day inside the service apartment, about Hajia Kilishi threatening the family's finances if she refused to take back her accusation. By the time she finished, Talatu's wrapper was wet with tears. Then suddenly Zubaida sat up. "The painful thing," she whispered brokenly, "is that I had to lie to Uncle." Fresh tears rolled down her face. "After all the help he has given us, now he will think I am a liar." She covered her face. "But if I didn't lie, they would stop sending money for food." Talatu sighed deeply. Then she held Zubaida's hand firmly. "Listen to me carefully," she said softly. "You are a child. It is not your responsibility to feed this family." Zubaida looked at her silently. "Yes, Kabir helps us," Talatu continued. "But it is Allah that takes care of us, not him." For a moment, the room became quiet, except for Zubaida's soft crying. Then Talatu gently lifted her chin. "You should not have lied." The words were calm, not harsh, just truthful. "No matter what happens in this world," Talatu said quietly, "always stand by your truth." She paused. "Even if I tell Alhaji Kabiru now, he probably will not believe us." Then she pulled Zubaida close again. "But don't worry, you are back with us now. You are safe." Later that night, Talatu told Nana everything about Zubaida. The two women sat silently afterward for a long time. Both of them already understood something important. This was not the end. And just as they had always done, even while their husband was alive, Talatu immediately called a family meeting. The older children gathered inside the compound. Even their eldest daughter in Funtua was called and placed on speakerphone. One by one, everybody listened as Talatu narrated everything Zubaida had told her. The room became tense immediately. Before she could even finish, Zubaida's older brother, Usmanu, fondly called Manu, jumped to his feet furiously. "I will go to Abuja myself," he shouted. "I will deal with that criminal with my own hands." He began raining insults angrily until Nana cautioned him sharply. "Sit down," she said. Slowly, the compound became quiet again. Talatu looked around at all the children. "This is only the beginning," she said heavily. Everybody listened carefully. "With what has just happened now," she continued, "I know Hajia Kilishi will never allow Kabir continue supporting this family peacefully." She sighed deeply. "And one day soon, that support may stop completely." 2 days after Zubaida returned home, Alhaji Kabir came to Mani. The entire compound became tense the moment his car arrived. Zubaida came out quietly to greet him. "Uncle," but Kabir did not answer her. He walked inside and sat down heavily while everybody gathered around nervously. For a while he remained silent. Then slowly he began speaking. And with every sentence, Zubaida felt herself sinking deeper into shame. After she left Abuja, Hajia Kilishi and some of the maids had told him terrible stories about Zubaida, stories about Muhammadu. One of the maids had even sworn that she had once caught both of them behaving inappropriately together inside the kitchen. Kabir spoke bitterly. They said maybe when Kausada came into the house, both of them became afraid their secret would be exposed. Nana covered her face and started crying silently. Zubaida sat frozen. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then suddenly Talatu exploded. For the first time in all the years Kabir had known her, she raised her voice at him. "Haba, Kabir, Haba." Everybody became silent immediately. "How can you even sit here comfortably and say such things about this child?" Her voice shook with anger. "This is a terrible lie, and if you cannot see it, then wallahi, I feel sorry for you." Kabir looked shocked. Then his own anger rose immediately. He stood up sharply. "After everything I have done for this family, you are shouting at me?" Talatu stood too. And unlike Nana, who usually cried quietly through pain, Talatu had always been different. She fought for what she believed was true, no matter who stood before her. "You are not our God," she shouted back. "You do not hold our sustenance in your hands." The room became completely tense. "Yes, you help us," Talatu continued fiercely, "and we are grateful for it. But helping us does not give you the right to come into this house and insult us and insult our parenting." Kabir pointed angrily towards Zubaida. "So everybody is lying except her." Talatu stepped closer. "If you are too blind to see how wicked and cruel Hajia Kilishi is, then that is your own problem." The argument became louder. Years of hidden tension suddenly burst open between them. The older children tried calming both sides, but nobody listened anymore. Finally, furious and deeply offended, Alhaji Kabir stormed out of the compound. And from that day onward, the support stopped completely. The family had already expected this. Deep down, everybody knew the day Alhaji Kabir stopped helping them would come eventually. So instead of collapsing, they adjusted. Every member of the family doubled down on survival. The older children all found one small business or another to support the house. Even Nana and Talatu increased their own small trading activities. And as always, Talatu quietly took charge of managing the family finances. No matter how little entered the house, she stretched it carefully. Food first, school fees, everything else later. Most importantly, she worked hard to keep the family united despite the pressures. Zubaida returned to secondary school in Mani, and strangely, her 18 months in Abuja had changed her academically. The same girl who once struggled badly in Abuja now found many subjects easier than before. Her English improved greatly. Her confidence in class returned. To help the family, she started organizing extra lessons for children preparing for common entrance examinations. The money was small, very small, but every naira mattered at that stage. In the evenings, after school, she also fried kose and awara with Nana near the roadside. On weekends, they woke up before dawn to prepare larger batches for morning buyers and evening customers. Her older brother Manu eventually got work at a construction site laying tiles. Slowly, he became the main source of income for the household. Sometimes he returned home exhausted, covered in dust and cement, but he rarely complained. Meanwhile, Hadiza, who had now completed secondary school, started making hair, bridal makeup, and henna designs. During wedding seasons, she earned surprisingly good money. Still, she refused to spend most of it. Quietly, she kept saving towards her dream of attending university one day. The first few months after Kabir's support ended were difficult, very difficult. There were days the food was not enough. Days school fees almost became impossible. Days the younger children cried over things the families simply could not afford anymore. But slowly the family adapted. And for the first time since Hamid's death, they began learning how to survive completely on their own. After Zubaida returned from Abuja, the family heard very little about Alhaji Kabir. At first, they expected the anger to cool down eventually, but it never did. He stopped visiting Mani completely. Even during Eid celebrations, when he normally arrived with gifts, food, and long convoys, he no longer came. Slowly, it became clear he had cut the family off entirely. Life moved on, painfully sometimes, but it moved. Almost 2 years passed. Zubaida completed her SSC examination and I was awaiting her results. One evening after Isha prayer, the family sat together outside the compound, enjoying the cool night air. Moments like this had become important to them now. Simple, peaceful, everybody discussing plans for the future. The younger children argued noisily nearby, while Nana sorted vegetable inside a tray. Hadiza was home briefly for Easter break from Sokoto, where she was now in her second year studying Islamic studies. Manu had returned late from work, still smelling faintly of cement and dust. When somebody asked Zubaida what course she wanted to study in university, she smiled and said, I think economics. Immediately, Salatu laughed loudly. Haba, why waste university learning economics when I am already the finance manager in this house? Everybody laughed. I can teach you everything myself, Talatu continued proudly. Even Zubaida laughed. For a brief moment, life felt normal again. Then suddenly Zubaida's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and immediately frowned. Manu noticed instantly. Who is it? Zubaida hesitated. It's Larry. The laughter around the compound died immediately. Everybody remembered Larry, the maid from Abuja, the woman whose words helped destroy Zubaida's credibility. Manu's expression changed at once. The phone stopped ringing. Then quietly he said, if she calls again, put it on speaker. Almost immediately the phone began ringing again. This time Zubaida answered slowly and pressed the speaker. The moment Zubaida answered the phone, they heard chaos. People screaming, furniture moving, voices shouting over each other. Then Larry's panicked voice burst into the speaker. Ah, Zubaida, Madame has killed her brother. There is blood everywhere. Everybody in the compound froze. In the background, Hajia Kilishi was screaming hysterically. I will kill you. You are a wicked man. Allah ya Isa. Then suddenly the line went dead. For several seconds, nobody spoke. The compound became completely silent. Everybody stared at one another. Finally, Manu spoke first. Call her back. Zubaida lifted the phone immediately. But before she could dial, Talatu cut in sharply. No! Everybody looked at her. Talatu's face was, whatever is happening there is no longer our business. She turned towards Zubaida firmly. And how can you trust the same person who lied against you? Nobody argued after that. Slowly the family dispersed for the night. But Zubaida could not sleep. She lay awake, staring into the darkness, replaying the screams in her head over and over again. Madame has killed her brother. There is blood everywhere. Something about the fear in Larry's voice disturbed her deeply. 2 days later, Alhaji Kabir came to Mani, and to everybody's shock, Zubaida almost did not recognize him. This was not the polished, wealthy politician they once knew, not the confident man with neatly pressed kaftans and expensive perfume. The man standing inside the compound looked broken, completely broken. His beard had grown wildly. His cream kaftan was stained and badly wrinkled. He wore no cap. His eyes were swollen, red, and hollow from sleeplessness. Even the way he stood looked different, like somebody carrying unbearable weight. Nobody spoke at first. Kabir slowly stepped into the compound, then stopped, and simply stood there staring at Zubaida. "Assalamu alaikum, Uncle," Zubaida said softly. Alhaji Kabir did not answer. It was as though he had not even heard her. Talatu quietly brought out a woven mat and spread it beneath the old mango tree inside the compound. Then she walked gently towards him. "Alhaji, come and sit down." Slowly, almost like somebody waking from deep sleep, Kabir lifted his head and followed her without speaking. He sat heavily on the mat and rested his chin inside his palm, staring blankly at the ground. The entire family gathered around silently. Nobody understood what they were looking at. This was not the same man. Talatu quietly asked Manu to check outside. When Manu returned, confusion covered his face. "There is no driver," he said quietly. "No convoy." Everybody looked toward the gate instinctively. Only Kabir's SUV stood outside, covered in dust, nothing else. Manu slowly knelt before him respectfully. "Salamu alaikum, Baba." This time Kabir answered faintly, "Wa alaikum salam." Manu hesitated before asking carefully, "Where is your driver?" Kabir blinked slowly, as though the question took effort to understand. Then quietly he replied, "I drove myself from Abuja." Silence fell again. Nobody knew what to say. Kabir looked exhausted in a way that frightened them, like a man whose mind had stopped working properly from too much grief. Talatu quietly sent Manu to buy fresh fura for him from a nearby house. It had always been one of his favorite things whenever he visited Mani in the past. When the fura finally arrived, Kabir stared at it for several seconds before taking the calabash slowly into his hands. His fingers trembled slightly. Then in a dry, broken voice he said, "This is my first meal in 3 days." Nobody moved. Even the younger children became silent. Kabir ate slowly, absent-mindedly, as though he could barely taste the food. Sometimes he stopped chewing halfway and stared into space. Sometimes he rubbed his forehead repeatedly, like somebody trying desperately to wake himself from a nightmare. And all around him, the family watched in confusion and disbelief. Strange silence, half sentences, and long empty staring. Alhaji Kabir suddenly spoke. "My Saudat is 7 months pregnant." The compound became still. Nobody moved. Kabir lifted his head slowly, his eyes swollen with tears. "Sada impregnated her," he whispered weakly. "His own niece. My poor child. My poor child," he said. The words hit Zubaida so hard her knees gave way beneath her. She dropped to the ground instantly. Her mind could not process it. Saudat, sweet, harmless Saudat, the little girl who hid chocolates for her, the only person who had shown her kindness in Abuja. Kabir continued speaking rapidly now, his thoughts breaking apart as grief swallowed him. "She does not even understand what happened," he said helplessly. "That useless boy told her it was a new game. My child does not know anything. Her brain is not even working properly." His sentences tangled over each other. Sometimes he spoke to them, sometimes to himself. "And that mother," he muttered bitterly, "that woman, Kilishi." His breathing became uneven. "How does your daughter stop menstruating for 7 months and you don't notice? Everything she leaves to house help. He rubbed both hands over his face roughly. If Sada was not already in hospital before I came back, his voice shook violently. Wallahi, I would have killed him myself. Nobody interrupted him. They won't even let me see him now, he continued bitterly. Police are everywhere. Then suddenly, his voice cracked completely. And now the pregnancy, he whispered. Doctors said they cannot terminate it. They said it will be like killing a baby. The confession shattered the entire compound. Nana covered her mouth and burst into tears. Talatu leaned back heavily, like the strength had left her body. Hadiza started crying openly. Even Manu, who always tried acting hard no matter what happened, lowered his head and wiped his eyes repeatedly. In the middle of everybody, Alhaji Kabir finally broke completely. Not quiet tears, not controlled tears. He cried like a man whose soul had been destroyed. Deep, painful sobs shook his entire body beneath the mango tree. My poor Saudat, he kept repeating helplessly. My poor child. Later that evening, after dinner, Talatu quietly instructed Manu to return with Alhaji Kabir to his house in Mani. Go clean the house for him, she said softly. He should not be alone. Kabir looked too broken to argue. Manu called one of Kabir's drivers, who later arrived from Abuja, and took both of them back to Abuja the next day. Over the following weeks, the full story slowly reached Mani. Saudat had been complaining of stomach pain repeatedly. At first, nobody paid serious attention. But during a routine hospital scan, the truth was discovered. She was pregnant. And when doctors and social workers questioned her gently over time, Saudat unknowingly revealed that the abuse had started long before Zubaida even left Abuja. The entire family was shattered. People later said that when Hajia Kilishi finally understood what had happened to her daughter, something inside her had snapped completely. In her rage, she chased Kausada through the house with a knife. She stabbed him several times before security and neighbors intervened. That was the chaos Larry had called about that night. Some people even claimed one of his eyes was permanently damaged during the attack. When Alhaji Kabir returned fully to Abuja after visiting Mani, he divorced Hajia Kilishi immediately. Then quietly and quickly, he packed his children and relocated them to Dubai. He left Kilishi alone in the massive mansion she once controlled so proudly. About 3 months later, the house was sold completely. Meanwhile, Kausada was taken to court. This time there was no escape, no manipulation, no family protection. He was sentenced to life imprisonment. But even that did not satisfy Hajia Kilishi. Consumed by rage and guilt, she reportedly sold much of her jewelry, trying to bribe prison guards to kill her own brother inside prison. The guards collected her money and laughed behind her back. Slowly, Hajia Kilishi became a shadow of herself. The beautiful, proud woman who once ruled through cruelty and humiliation disappeared completely. None of her children spoke to her anymore, and Alhaji Kabir made sure of it. After the scandal, very little was heard publicly about Alhaji Kabir or his children again. Nobody in Mani knew what eventually happened to Saudat or the baby. Life moved on quietly. As for Zubaida, she eventually gained admission into Kaduna State University to study economics, and slowly she began rebuilding her life far away from Abuja and its memories. Back in Mani, the story of Hajia Kilishi became something people spoke about carefully whenever arrogance and cruelty came up. Women whispered it during evening gatherings. Mothers used it to warn their daughters, because in the end, the woman who spent years humiliating poor people lost the very thing wealth could not protect: her children, her home, her peace, and her name. Thank you for listening to Northern Tales, where silence is broken, and every woman's story finds its way back to her own voice. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, sometimes the people we look down on today are the same people who survive us tomorrow.